Good morning, everyone. Welcome in. I'm so excited to have everyone here for our monthly educational webinar. I'm even more excited to have a guest speaker from Whip Around here to talk about our topic for today, which is where fleet maintenance compliance breaks down. Before we jump into all the fun, I always have to do my little housekeeping. So this session will be recorded, so don't feel like you need to scribble down all of the amazing things that Taylor talks about today. You'll go ahead and get a copy of this recording, and it'll be available in your email inbox as well as all of our socials, LinkedIn, and our website. So, my intros are always fun to do, but I'm gonna go ahead and let Taylor introduce herself and take control.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Emily. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Very excited to be here with you guys today. So my name's Taylor Hay. I'm from Whip Around. I've been with Whip Around for a little over 6 years now within the fleet industry. If you've seen anything with Whip Around recently, you may also see me as Safe Tay, as they have recently dubbed me, also hosting the Safe Tay Talks podcast. So if you can tell by the name, obviously very passionate when it comes to safety, compliance, and just all the better ways that we can educate ourselves and make sure that we are prepared for everything that the FMCSA and the roadways are throwing us. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so Whip Around, we'll kind of get more into this towards the end here, but just for anyone that's not familiar, Whip Around is a fleet inspection and maintenance platform. So we are a web-based dashboard along with a mobile app. The mobile app is going to feature your DVIRs, your inspections for any type of vehicles, any type of assets, trailers, job assessments, something you want to inspect, you can do it with Whip Around. All of that information then feeds into our back-end system where you can log in, look at all of your inspection history, your stats, what defects are coming in, manage those defects through, work orders, keeping up with parts and inventory, just really taking you through that entire flow. And then, of course, keeping all of these records for you from a compliance standpoint. And again, I'll kind of tie more of that in as we go through. But let's start off first with more of the industry stats. So one of the reasons we're here today is to talk about vehicle maintenance basic. And this is consistently one of the, top CSA categories for violations, across the United States. These are some stats just from last year. So brakes consistently is one of the top violation categories. This is combined for all brake issues, looking at over almost 41% of roadside violations, which is pretty massive, with tires and lights right behind. So my always phrase, you guys may have heard this before, is the BLT sandwich, right? Brakes, lights, tires, not just a great lunch option, but definitely a main focus because year after year, these are where we are seeing the biggest hits. And last year alone, almost 60% of all roadside inspections did result in a vehicle maintenance violation. So, clearly this is something that's, not going away. This has been pretty consistent over the past few years. And it's probably going to jump even higher because you guys, I'm sure, have heard that there are some big changes that are already coming into effect starting this year. So one of the biggest things is that the FMCSA has actually split the vehicle maintenance basic into two main categories, right? So you have your driver observed, which is going to be more of your lights, your tires, your mirrors, things that are observable during a pre-trip inspection. And then vehicle maintenance is going to be more mechanical, right? So your brakes, your suspension issues, internal engines, things that drivers typically aren't really doing a thorough check during a pre-trip, but things that should definitely, be checked on either periodically through mechanical checks while you're having any type of preventative maintenance service. This is a great time to spend extra time doing inspections of these items because both of these are going to have different weight severities now, and we'll get into that into the next slide. But I think the biggest takeaway from A whip around representative here is that fleets are now ranked specifically on how drivers perform those pre-trip inspections, right? So if your scores are getting higher, it's not just telling them that you're having mechanical or truck or asset issues, but that you're also having a weak link in the folks that are performing the inspections before these vehicles even hit the road. So I think one of the bigger things here is also how they are weighing these different changes. So previously, we had these really fun, complex ways for weighting the violations on that 1 to 10 scale. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with. And it was very hard to keep track of, right? I think I've talked to a lot of fleets where it was really difficult for them to even see where they stood because you would actually pretty much need to be aware of, of all of these different weight classes, all these different violations, how they are weighted. A specific tire issue could be an 8, a specific light issue could be a 2. It's very confusing. So this was basically put into place mostly for simplicity, which is going to be really great. This model is going to allow fleets to actually see exactly where they stand. So it's going to be a lot easier to kind of know what to prioritize, what's going to hurt you the most, and what are some things that you can walk away from and kind of prioritize for a later date. Now, this is going to be very rewarding for maintenance teams that are doing very well because, if you are a maintenance team that's very good at preventing mechanical issues, this new severity is going to focus more on you doing that rather than some of those low level violations. But fleets will be ranked again on how well those drivers are performing those pre-trips. So drivers definitely should be laser focused on things like brakes, tires, steering, securement, leaks, anything that could be out of service related. With this new severity system, right, you either get a weight of 1 or a 2. 1 basically means, hey, you know what, this vehicle can keep operating. Let's put it on the list. We definitely need to fix this or get to it before it turns into, a more crucial issue, but we're okay for the time. If it's weighted as a 2, that's an automatic out of service. You need to shut down immediately on the roadside. So any of those out of service violations, again, a lot of those driver observed, are actually going to basically sideline you immediately. And it's almost doubling the weight of a lot of these violations than we were seeing in previous years. Now, this is going to cause quite a ripple effect. And to be honest, it has already. This is nothing new, right? So when you have high CSA scores, that's putting a target on your back. So the margin of error now with this new weighting system is gone. With the old system, you could hide a few light violations because they were low weight. Now, if they put you out of service and it's a 2, your score is going to climb twice as high. Again, putting that major target on your back for those roadside inspections. When you have that target on your back, you're getting pulled over more. That's when you're actually getting even more violations that, could have been potentially missed by folks that they, may have not observed had you not had that target because of a higher CSA score. Auditors and inspectors that are on the road, they do take account of that. They can look at the DOT number, see you rolling down the road, and they can pull you over simply because you have a high score without even having to have a visible defect at that moment. So again, we really want to avoid any of those targets on the back. Now, of course, we all know once you get those higher scores, you're starting to cross that intervention threshold. And in the vehicle maintenance categories, these will trigger an automatic warning letter from the FMCSA. Think of your high CSA score as basically an invitation for the FMCSA to come visit your office or start any type of audit. And once they're there, they're not looking at those small tire and light issues that bumped up your CSA score in the first place. They're now looking at your record. So now you need to make sure that your inspection, your defect history, your PM schedules, all of your reporting has your ducks in a row, because now that leads to even more violations. About 93% of fleets that are audited walk away with at least one violation, right? So only 7% of fleets in the US are actually coming out with a clean slate. So as you can see, obviously there's some very great high performing fleets out there. Even the best of the best are getting hit with some type of violation once they're invited in to do that audit. Again, we're talking about that snowball effect that kind of brings you down into those insurance premium hikes. Insurance companies are no longer just looking at your crash history, right? They're looking at your maintenance culture. So if your new driver observed score is considered a high risk, that can also lead to higher premiums, stricter policies, coverage restrictions, and in some cases, non-renewals. So, and all of these, of course, it's a slippery slope, but it's an expensive one because as you're moving down this slope, right, you're getting hit with the fines from your immediate roadside violations. Then you're getting hit from the fines when they come in and audit you in your office. You're getting hit with those documentation fines. And then you're getting hit with the insurance hike. So, like I said, it's an expensive slope, and it's one that happens pretty quickly if we don't have our ducks in a row. So, how do we prevent all of this happening with all of the new changes that are coming this year? Firstly, I wanted to go through just a couple inspection tips here. I'm a big believer that most folks are, trying to do the right things, that they're trying to inspect the vehicles properly, but not a lot of folks always know exactly what they're looking for. When it comes to brakes, they could be just kind of stepping on their brake pad and saying, hey, looks good to me. This is, all good to go. That's not always the case, right? So a really good inspection at minimum should take 15 minutes, bare minimum, right? And for more complex assets, it could be anywhere to 30 to 60 minutes. I know when I bring this up, a lot of folks are like, an hour on a pre-trip is insane. Why would I spend that much time? We need to get moving. But I can promise you, when you invest more time in your pre-trip on the front end, you are saving so much time on the back end because now, guess what? You're not sitting roadside for an inspection. You're not getting put out of service and missing work for the entire day. You're not paying, tow fines and all those great things. So I can promise you investing time in your inspection is going to be the number one biggest tip you can do. Couple things I wanted to go through here. So on the brakes, contamination with oil and grease. This one gets missed a lot. If brake pads or shoes are contaminated with oil or grease, your stopping power is reduced significantly. So even if everything else looks fine, inspectors view contaminated friction material as a serious brake defect. And if it's severe enough, this is one that can get you put out of service. Another one with airline leaks or damage, even the small airline leaks really matter. If you might not see it, but definitely listen very closely because if you hear even a faint hiss, that's pressure loss. That directly impacts brake performance. Air leaks are one of the most common brake violations. Larger leaks can create immediate out of service conditions. So that's definitely one I see a lot of people look over. It's an easy one to spot if you're paying attention. And then also with push rod stroke and adjustment. Out of adjustment brakes still remain one of the top brake related violations. A lot of drivers assume that automatic slack adjusters are working properly, but they can still fail. If a push rod's overextended, that should be an immediate red flag that can be placed out of service. So if you do see that, that definitely needs to go down as a reported defect. Another thing to mention on brakes here is the drum, rotor cracks, or any heat marks or cracks are signs of stress and overuse. So that's not just normal wear, that is failure waiting to happen. So if you see cracked drums or rotors, definitely treat those as a serious defect as well. Overheating often signals brake condition that will draw closer attention from an inspector. Now with lights, I know a lot of folks think, hey, if the lights are operating, we're good to go. That's not always the case. It's not enough to have them simply turned on. They do need to be bright, visible, and consistent. So if you have either a flickering or a dim light, those are also among some of the most common light violations, and those are very easy to spot from the road. Quick way to get pulled over for a more in-depth inspection. A lot of lighting issues are also not even the lights itself, but from the connection. So when you're checking any trailer connections, corroded or loose connectors are also a very common cause of intermediate failures. So any inconsistent trailer lighting is also something inspectors look out for specifically, and it's something that they notice quickly. This one sounds so silly. Your license plate light. This is another one that is a very common violation that gets missed a lot because it feels minor, right? Your license plate light basically in no way is going to impact the safety of the vehicle, but it is still something that can be cited, and it's another reason to get pulled over at night. So that's a silly one, but definitely make sure that your full staff is keeping up with that. And the last one is backup lights. These are skipped a lot during pre-trips because a lot of things I hear is, well, it's behind me. If I'm by myself leaving a yard, how can I possibly see the backup lights? These are frequently noted as another top violation, especially with vocational equipment and straight trucks. I know a lot of folks will use either, they'll back up to like a garage or something, and they'll use their mirror to see if they can actually tell if the lights are on. Another great tip: put your phone on record, see if you can lean it against something. Take a quick video of you doing your light checks. Bring like a pocket, mirror with you. That's a little bit harder to see, I think, depending on the size. But if you can do a quick recording, most folks are going to have a phone or tablet on them anyway. That's a really big one to make sure that you're keeping up with for lights. Couple things for tires. So visual tire thread checks. Stop doing those. You need to be using a gauge. Every asset needs to be equipped with a gauge. I even have a lot of folks, part of their inspection pre-trip, they'll actually even have like, do you have your gauge on you or inside of the asset as part of the inspection checks, right? To make sure that it's not only there for you, it's there for the next person if it's not one that they carry on them personally. There are a lot of violations where drivers thought everything looked totally fine, but it actually was below the legal limit. Tire tread violations are also really common, especially on steer tires. Those are taken really seriously. Sidewall damage. If you see bulges, that is not a cosmetic issue. That is a structural failure. So that tire is at risk of blowing out. Sidewall bulges, exposed cord, any major cuts are some of the clearest tire defects inspectors look for, and those can all now place you out of service. Underinflation is also a really commonly overlooked tire issue. It leads to heat buildup, uneven wear. It can lead to eventual failure. Now, this might not be something that you get immediately cited for, but it is one of the leading causes for roadside or tire breakdowns and can definitely lead to more damage that you can get citations for. Another one too, dual tire spacing. This is another one that I see get missed a lot. If dual tires are touching, that's going to create friction and heat, which can also lead to blowouts, of course. It's actually another common defect on loaded trailers. It's often caused by low pressure or mismatched tire size. This is a really quick one to look for, but again, it's also something that inspectors do look for on the road and you will get pulled over for. The biggest, I think, most important part for all of these and everything on this list is that none of these are unexpected failures, right? They're things that are missed during a pre-trip or they're not addressed before hitting the road. 80 to 90% of things on a pre-trip, or I should say 80 to 90% of the driver observed violations can be corrected or fixed beforehand with a proper pre-trip inspection. So another thing I always say with this, I am a huge advocate for training. I think a lot of times drivers have good intentions, but they might not have some of those particular tips that I just gone over, or even know that some of the things on this list here are what they should really be looking for. So you might actually have some folks out there that in their eyes are doing a good thorough inspection. They're just not knowing exactly how to identify what is a defect versus, what's something minor that can wait till later. I always think ongoing refresher trainings really help with this. I mean, I know every driver, operator, no matter what, type of business you're in, we all get busy. Everyone's trying to hit deadlines, make deliveries, get jobs completed on time. I think it gets really easy sometimes to either get complacent or rush through these. But I promise you, not only training on these tips, but also training on the importance of them is going to go a really long way. And again, save you guys a lot of time and a lot of money in the long run. Another thing here I always want to go over is the holy grail, right? The 3 signatures of compliance. This is where they will catch you on the back end, right? So imagine everything we've just gone over, that's going to really help prevent those violations that are roadside. Your 3 signatures of compliance, that's what they're going to be looking for when they're actually digesting your reports. They're looking into you from an audit perspective. So about 78% of DVIR violations are due to audits and documentation and signature errors rather than mechanical failures. So the first one you want to have, of course, is the driver signature. So unless you're in California or Canada, technically you're not required to fill out a pre-trip inspection unless a defect is found. However, hopefully after hearing everything we've just gone over, you understand that it is crucial to be doing a pre-trip for every single asset, every single shift anyway, because obviously you don't want to miss any of those driver observed defects. But nonetheless, when a defect is found, you must have that reported, and that must be signed by a driver. Now, that typically is an easy signature, right? That's not one that we typically seem to miss. The next one would be the mechanic signature. So once that defect is corrected, that needs to be signed off by the mechanic, verifying that yes, I have corrected that defect. This vehicle is safe to be put back into operation. Sometimes a lot of things get missed here because even if a defect is deemed safe or, that it basically isn't impacting the safety of that vehicle to be operated, that still needs a signature. That assessment can come from the mechanic themselves, or it can come from a carrier representative. And then third is the reviewing driver signature, whether that be the same driver that's getting back into that asset, or if there's a new driver using that asset that's just come back into service after being either fixed or marked as safe for operation. They also need to sign off on that previous DVIR stating that, yes, I've actually done a walkthrough myself. I do agree with the previous signature. This is safe for operation. So Holy Grail, you do need all 3 of those. Now, here's where a lot of the disconnect happens here. So one, maybe there was no inspection completed at all. Again, I think this ties back a lot to the last statement I said. You technically do not need to fill out a DVIR unless a defect is found. Some folks, I mean, they're really doing just kind of a quick overview and going, oh, we're fine, nothing to fill out here. If they're not really taking that 15 to 30 minutes to do that thorough walk around, a lot of times they're not filling out something that should have been, or maybe they're just honestly not doing a walk around at all. That definitely happens as well. We also have our lovely pencil whippers out there. Hopefully you guys aren't experiencing this as much, but you think of your folks, hey, it's pouring or it's snowing outside. I'm just going to sit in the cab of my vehicle and go through my checklist. Everything looks good here. Or sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, it's that lack of training where, somebody is going around, they are doing a thorough inspection, but they're not documenting things because they're not realizing it is a defect that needs to be reported. And lastly, this is never a fun one, but I do hear about this happening a lot as well, especially folks that are still using paper-based inspections. You either lose the DVIR, never reaches the mechanic, or just doesn't get to them in time. Maybe, at the end of the day, all the inspections are going in a basket on a desk, and then someone needs to file through. They need to then find all of the defects that were notated from that stack of files. Then they need to take that to the shop, get it over to the mechanic. There's so much that can happen within that time frame, or maybe they even get the inspections and they can't read it. I don't know. I mean, obviously you guys have never seen my handwriting, but I can promise you if I filled out a DVIR, nobody would have any idea what that said. So about 15% of all audit citations start with this first step. The second biggest reason fleets fail with the follow through is unresolved defects. So that defect was never repaired for one reason or another, or it was repaired and it just wasn't tracked or signed off correctly. Again, this is where I think the biggest disconnect comes through. Again, mechanics are also moving just as quickly as drivers, right? They're rotating through, they're having, so many different preventative maintenance schedules. There's different assets that they need to work through. I mean, they're working on getting a vehicle in and getting it back out so that way it can operate, whether it's a piece of heavy equipment or a vehicle back on the road. So I can see sometimes, again, especially in that paper instance, where they're just forgetting to sign off on it. Or again, if it's deemed as safe, they're just going, oh, it's fine, keep it moving. That is a big area that we see. And then lastly, that review gap, the most common missignature is that next driver, right? And I think that one's pretty easy to miss, again, especially if you're relying on paper. That driver's getting to a vehicle, they're ready to get in, start their day, and now they have to track down the last DVIR just to sign off on it. A lot of times that's not happening. So these are some of the biggest failure areas that we see in the follow through area here.
So I know you gave a lot of like reasons why why things are being missed, obviously the communication disconnect and just people potentially not exactly knowing what they're looking for, but I mean if you had to narrow it down, what are you seeing that is the biggest reason that these fails are happening?
Yeah, I think honestly the two biggest reasons for me, I think one are pencil whipped inspections. Folks that just are not taking the time to really do that thorough inspection. And again, I think that comes from that can be a combination of carelessness and also lack of training. And then the second I definitely think is that communication gap. That seems to be a really big one for a lot of fleets that I speak with. They're just having a really hard time with that follow through of getting from A to B to C. I think they just might not have a process that's as tight as needs to be. And the communication gap, of course, as you can imagine, gets even harder for folks that are working multiple job sites or have multiple locations. I mean, we had one customer we spoke with where they would actually have a guy. His whole job was to drive between all of their locations in a little mail truck and pick up their inspections and then drop them off for somebody to review. That person would then just have, figure out where they needed to go to what maintenance shops and then redistribute them again. So it was taking them 2 to 3 weeks just to even figure out what vehicles need to be in a shop to fix a defect that was reported.
Well, that's insane.
It's not good.
Like, there's no better way to explain that other than that is insane. But I mean, it's a disconnect across, it's not just maintenance. It is definitely this industry. I always joke that, the transportation industry, for some reason, we are just behind on the technology. We just don't want to implement it. We're resistant to it, but once they realize, hey, I'm taking 3 weeks to get this one defect to the mechanic, I think that's a pretty easy change for someone to make.
Yeah, and I mean, I realize too, I mean, it's such a fast moving industry, right? So I
Yeah,
think for a lot of folks, it's not, hey, I'm going to slow down during my busy season. Every season's their busy season, right?
right.
So when you're kind of in this type of process, a lot of, hey, it's broke so you don't fix it. It's a very broken system, but a lot of folks don't realize how broken it is until they get out of it and actually get a better process in place. And just taking the time on the front end to actually make that transaction and get yourself in a better process saves you so much more time and so many more headaches in the long run. And I mean, it's completely worth it to, really dive in and figure out where your gaps are and put a better process in place to fix it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which leads me to whip around, right? So, who are we, how can we help here, right? So, as I mentioned earlier, we are specifically a, inspections, maintenance, compliance platform. We were basically built to solve this issue for fleets, right? So, on the inspection side of things, that's going to start on your mobile app. Now, the inspections are fully customized. So, literally anything that you want to ask drivers to inspect for any type of asset. We actually even have someone doing porter potty inspections. I don't want that job, but just gives you an idea of, how flexible you can be with these forms. especially if you have focus problems, right? So if there's one area that you're seeing more defects in, you can make more detailed cards. I've even have folks that have created their inspections to be very directional, right? So they're almost giving instructions, kind of like I mentioned earlier with the safety tips. Those are actually built into the DVIR, almost like take away the excuse, right? They're not going to not know what to check for because it's right in front of them. We also don't have a no defects found button. That's very intentional, right? I think a lot of these systems allow you to just click, hey, there's nothing on here. In my mind, that's a digital pencil whip. You have to complete a full inspection form every time you go through whip around inspection. And one of our biggest features is the forced photo feature, right? So again, this ties into anything you might have particular issues with. You're having a lot of issues with oil not being checked. Well, instead of checking a box, force your drivers to take a picture of the dipstick to show that they're actually showing the oil. Sides of the vehicle, prove that you're actually looking around so there's no additional dings and dents. Take pictures of lights working. They have to take these photos in order to move forward in the inspection, so you can't skip them. They also can't, go on their camera roll, so they're not putting old pictures. And with one of our additional newer features, AI Inspection Pro, it'll actually analyze the photos for you and alert you when there is a defect or something looks off for you to review. Another big part of it is our driver leaderboard, right? So being able to actually use the data in the system, you look at the leaderboard, you can look at it a daily, weekly, monthly, whatever works best for you. And you can actually see the average in time it's taking either your fleet in its entirety or even just a single driver on their inspection. If someone's going through it and a minute or two, okay, well, that's someone that you need to focus on and get their average inspection time up. And of course, with every single inspection completed, we do have a signature card in there. They cannot submit an inspection without signing off. So you're automatically getting that first driver signature. Second, when it comes to our maintenance portion of Whip Around, anytime a defect is reported, you get an alert instantly, right? So it's going to go right to your mechanic and go to your fleet manager. Virtually anybody within the company that you want to have defect alerts for, you can prioritize and set your own notifications. All of those are going to come in with additional photos that are asked from the driver when they take that, when they report that defect, right? So now you're not dealing with the time of the back and forth between the mechanic and a shop and the driver of, well, how critical is a defect? What does it look like? If they need more information, they can actually text and message each other directly through the software as well. So all of those notes are actually also documented, which some folks will ask for in an audit as well. They can set priority statuses on there. It makes it really easy for your mechanics and your maintenance teams to prioritize their day. They can come in, look at their schedule, know exactly what assets need the most attention. And of course, preventative maintenance schedules, again, another big part of the audit reporting function. You must have a preventative maintenance schedule for every asset already set. With Whip Around, you can go in, you can set this by date, by time, by mileage, or engine hours. Say, hey, I want an oil change every, 3,000 miles, whatever it may be. You completely set those for yourself. The system will remind you at a threshold that you choose. Hey, maybe you want to know a few weeks out. It's going to notify. It may even, you can even set it to automatically create a work order. And then boom, once it's signed off and it's completed, it's going to go ahead and restart that timer for you. Now with the signature portion here, every mechanic, when they log into Whip Around, they can actually auto save their electronic signature. So anytime they do close out a defect, a work order, whether it be because they had fixed it or they deemed it as safe to operate, not only does it automatically add to the defect in the work order, but it's going to auto add to the original DVIR. So when you actually pull that up in your system, you're going to have the defect notified by the driver. Underneath that is going to be the signature from the mechanic showing that it's fixed. And then, of course, too, with record retention, we're a cloud-based system. We save all of your records from day one. You can export anything instantly. So just keeps you very audit ready with all of the required documentation. And of course, that last, stamp of approval with the that driver review gap. Anytime a driver goes to complete their inspection, before they can even start theirs, they have to sign off on the previous inspection of that asset, right? So Whip Around ensures no matter what, you always have your holy grail. It makes it easier than ever to make sure you consistently have your 3 signatures. So we look at Whip Around as completing the complete compliance loop, from starting your DVIR to getting the defect reported, getting that defect repaired, closing out that defect with signatures, returning it to service, getting it signed off by that reviewing driver, who then starts their new DVIR. So it's just a beautiful circle of compliance. And, we've really created this software to make sure that we help with, the vehicle maintenance basic and make sure that that's not a common violation for your fleet like it is for the majority out there.
I know we talked, heavily about DVIRs really throughout the presentation, but you guys offer, the maintenance, and a really big, kind of topic across fleets right now is preventative maintenance, being more in that preventative mindset. Do you see a difference in the companies that you work with when they implement a preventative kind of maintenance and mindset across the board to be more productive, to be more safe, and like to meet those compliance goals a lot better than those who are more reactive?
100%. Yeah. I mean, proactive over reactive maintenance is always going to be the way to go. I think it helps on a couple of fronts. I mean, obviously, it's keeping your vehicles in good condition. It's making sure now, especially now that they're focusing on those mechanical observed vehicle maintenance basic, having a preventative maintenance schedule is going to be probably your number one fighter against that, right? So while you're actually doing your preventative maintenance, again, you can be inspecting for other issues. You can be making sure that everything's good to go. And honestly, even outside of compliance, you're spending a lot of money on these assets, right? So, making sure that you're getting the longevity out of them, keeping them properly maintained based off of their, manufacturer, uh, what sort of looking for suggestions. So when we see folks input the preventative maintenance schedules, they're putting out a lot less fires. They're able to organize things a lot more. And the nice thing too with Whip Around is if a defect does come in, if there is a upcoming preventative maintenance, whatever it may be that is already scheduled, and maybe it's a month out, it'll actually pop up there and say, hey, you also have the service coming up. Do you want to combine them? So
Mhm.
the main thing too is you want to make sure really decreasing downtime, right? How much can we do on a vehicle while it's down before we get it back up on the road, and then keep it out on the road because it's been maintained, it's properly ready to go. So having that preventative maintenance schedule makes a massive difference for both the driving team and the and honestly the maintenance team as well, because you're really able to keep your ducks in a row, see what services are coming up, and make sure nothing's getting missed or overlooked. Because if you do fall behind, you are going to get an alert. So it's really hard once you set up the preventative maintenance schedules and Whip Around to not follow it or not know when something is slipping through the cracks.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I know we're a little over time, but the everything that you presented was awesome. Thanks for those who were able to hang out a little bit longer with us today. Always glad to have you guys on with us. Um, we will send out the recording, like I said. Happy to connect anyone with Whip Around if you have more questions regarding your fleet, how your fleet operates, what you're currently utilizing, if you're currently utilizing anything for your maintenance and DVIRs, and really kind of hone in on those gaps that are specific to your fleet. So send all that out. Look for that in your inboxes. And as always, stay safe, stay compliant, and keep driving success. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Taylor, for joining us today.
Of course. Thanks for your time, guys. Like Emily said, definitely reach out if you have any questions. If you are a Geotab user, we actually are directly integrated, so those two systems work together, which is also great. We'd actually just helped one of our customers have a 30-point deduction in their CSA score and also decrease their days to correct a defect by 73%. So we're doing a lot of great work out here, and would love to help you guys out. www.whiparound.com. Definitely happy to connect.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.